Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David.
I'm Colin.
I'm
Mike.
Ted.
Oh,
Don't worry, guys.
Hello.
It's a Star Wars Stuff Podcast tradition to talk over each other at the intro, but hopefully not for the rest of the podcast. So, Happy New Year, Ted, Mike, Colin. I haven't seen you guys since 2022. How's your New Year been going?
that is such a dad joke, bro. I've heard that so much.
That's not a dad joke. That's just being polite and asking.
No,
going.
well, for me, I would like work the day before, like of the new year, and then I would come the next day, and people were like, "Wow, I haven't seen you since last year." And it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's the joke I used on my kids. So
Okay. See, dad joke. There, boom. There you go.
I'm a dad. Yeah.
But anyways,
So Bad Batch launched this new year. I know we have Colin's thoughts. We have a whole podcast that they did on Wednesday. Him, Christian, Hunter, and Star. But Ted, what were your thoughts on the first two episodes of Bad Batch season 2?
I'm going to be extremely honest. I have a review that I'm doing with one of my co-hosts,
Mhm.
and he's not close to seeing it yet. So I'm waiting until he sees it. That way we both kind of have it fresh in our minds. So as of right now, have not seen the first two episodes, but I'm excited because I love the first season and just can't wait for everything else they do and everything else they got planned. It feels like Star Wars is at a great place where they are seamlessly connecting multiple characters and multiple arcs from different projects, over the decades. And so it's just exciting. It's exciting to kind of see them interweave pretty much everything that we've known and loved to be Star Wars. So regardless, I'm super excited.
all right,
Cool.
Mike. How about you?
Without spoilers.
Without spoilers. Yes, we don't want to spoil it for Ted. I'm a big fan of season 1. I think, it got a lot of criticism from people, and I do think that the show balanced some things out pretty well, trying to, conjure a new audience while still paying respect to Clone Wars fans and Rebels fans. Because I absolutely loved season 1. And yeah, it had its low moments, but I still just strung along and was like, man, this is fascinating. So I was, expecting like a big punch for season 2, and it kind of fell flat for me. I mean, I did have fun with it. There's moments that I laughed and giggled or was like, oh man, that looked cool. But overall, I just was left with wanting more. So overall, I was just like, it did its job. It was okay, but I was just expecting a little bit something more for a season 2 opener. Because I mean, the way season 1 ended, I was like extremely crushed, and we all saw how that went down. And I'm like, oh man, where are they going to resume? And it just felt like it felt like nothing. So I was just like, oh man, I just kind of wanted like that more of like Rebels, how Rebels treated their finales, and then when the next season would premiere, you would feel like the impact of what just happened. And I didn't really get that, but there we go.
Yeah. No, I've got a feeling that this is going to be a darker and grittier season, and I think we're kind of heading in that theme with Star Wars altogether this year, and that kind of ended with Andor. I mean, it kind of began with Andor, because I know for me, and I think I speak for a lot of people, is that we weren't really expecting the full darkness that Andor was. But I think it was the right amount, and I think that will carry on with the shows this year. So Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, hopefully Acolyte, and especially Acolyte, I think it will, and with Mando season 3. And I think this year is just going to blow everyone away. And I say it every year, but this year honestly is going to be the year of Star Wars, because it's so much content. It's so much content. No movies, unfortunately, which I think that's where Star Wars truly belongs for me, because that's where it began, which I'm really excited for the future Star Wars movies coming out, which we'll definitely talk about. But I think this season of The Bad Batch will definitely be darker than the first.
Yeah, I think that saying that you have there, Colin, this year is going to be the year Star Wars has to be on a T-shirt or a bumper sticker or something.
Yes.
I think we got to print those ASAP. But yeah, as far as my feelings for Bad Batch season 2, I think all of our listeners kind of know what my feelings are on animation. I've never been too big of an animation fan as an adult, but I did enjoy season 1 of The Bad Batch, surprisingly, and I liked where they go. I liked the storytelling. I liked the animation, the improvements that they made. But I wasn't really looking forward into this premiere for season 2. I did stayed up till 2 a.m. I watched it. I gave it a shot, and I really enjoyed it. Colin and I were lucky enough to go see that opening sequence with the stuff in the place on that one planet.
I think Mike was there
celebration.
too. Yeah,
Yes.
or no?
Yeah, I was there
okay.
too. That
Okay.
was pretty
Yep.
stellar. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're at that panel. D. Bradley Baker, this supremely talented D. Bradley Baker. I mean, the dude voices just about everyone on that show. It's like him and Michelle Yang, as Omega. But I enjoyed it. I really liked the first 2 episodes, and I think it's what we got in season 1, and I think it's par for the course. And I think I'm going to continue watching it probably at 2 a.m. Like I always tell myself I'm going to go to bed, but somehow, some way, my body just refuses to go to sleep. So I just get up, go watch it. And like I said, I enjoyed season 1. And with that trailer that we got for season 2, like Colin alluded to, it's going to be darker. We're going to get Palpatine. Ian McDermott is going to voice Palpatine. And in one of the episodes that we got a nice little piece of connective tissue to the prequels that Ted will later find out about, and I can't wait to see his review on it. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to it, and I thought they did a pretty good job. And like I said earlier, Colin did a whole podcast breakdown. So if you look at our last podcast, you can get that broken down by 3 of the other biggest Bad Batch fans out there that costume as the Bad Batch. So
yes,
definitely check that out. So I also, before we really get going here, I do want to thank our patrons, our tremendous support that we get. Shout outs to the purple tier: Chris Simpson, Kevin Leininger, Devin McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Zach Netzel. On the red tier, Fenrir526, Maya Morris. On the black tier, Maka Tawatala, who is on here right now in chat. Nathan Shank, Evan Opaker, and Liam McCallion. Thank you so much for all the awesome support. So, guys, for the first topic, I think we want to talk about, I think especially Colin really wants to talk about this Ubisoft game.
Yes.
That kind of, I guess it's maybe a little bit of a leak. I know there's been
so
recent
excited,
reports
bro.
about it, that it's not in reference to the game that's about to come out, but it looks like, I think Colin has all the details on it. So, Colin, take it away.
All right. So this game is basically going to be like No Man's Sky, and then think of the way that you can travel in the new Lego Star Wars game, the Skywalker Saga, but it's going to be on the lines of more live action-ish. And we don't know if it's going to have that element of where you'll be able to make your own path, where if you want to be a smuggler, you can be a smuggler. If you want to be a Jedi, you want to be a Jedi. I think it would be cool if you could just do anything. Like, how cool would it be to just be a normal person, have a normal job, and just kind of walk on the streets of Coruscant and be like, hey, actually, you know what? I feel like flying to the planet Kashyyyk and fly over there. Or maybe they might have planets in the unknown regions. There's so many planets in the galaxy and in the Star Wars universe that you'll be able to, hopefully that you'll be able to travel to, because there's so much content and there's so many places to go. So I am hoping it's not the fighting style of Star Wars Old Republic. It's more of like that freelance, like we have in Jedi Fallen Order, where you can just, or GTA. I think that's the best like open world game example. Something in the lines of that, I think, would be fantastic. What do you guys think? What are your expectations for the game?
Mike?
So I read this the other day and I was just like, finally, like we finally have something like this coming out, because as you mentioned, the Lego Skywalker game, I think that like I think we've all been quenching for a game like that, and I think that like satisfied a lot of people. Like we finally got something like that. So it's just I think we're on the real precipice of of getting something like this. So when I read that, I was like, yes, finally. I mean, go back to the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. Whenever I would be in a space battle, I would just be like, I want to travel down to the planet and continue the fight, or I want to jump into hyperspace and go to another system. Like, I would just be so I mean, I would be engaged in the battle that was going on, but I'm like, what if it'd be so cool if I could just take this X-Wing and just fly out of here, out of the combat zone. So I think that would be super cool. And I love that they are supposedly going to give you your, class of life living. You could be, as you mentioned, smuggler, bounty hunter. So yeah, I love when there's just that much freedom in games. I think Jedi Fallen Order, it was pretty cool flying from Bogana, where you start off. Like, you could just control the ship, but I mean, you couldn't really do anything. So it was a little bit more freedom than that we're used to, but it was still amazing when you play the Lego game and you got to do that stuff that I was just saying. So yeah, hopefully with this Ubisoft game, I think they were saying it might come out this year, next year, something like that. I would bet on next year, but yeah, I'm so down to play a game like that. Like, as you said, GTA, Star Wars. Like, imagine like, being Cad Bane for a day, just like hijacking a starship that you want, escaping from prison. Oh, so cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it's not just that. It's just like of customizing your own droid ship, and I mean, we can do that in Galaxy's Edge, like, and that's fantastic. But imagine just making your own character, exploring different planets, different lands, and just having like of the freedom. Like, that's what I think that's the main dream for Star Wars fans. Star Wars fans is to immerse themselves and be themselves in the Star Wars universe. And yes, there are different things they have now, but I think an open world game like this is what a lot of people want. Like, I mean, I think the first thing that popped in my head when I, played GTA all those years ago was, why isn't this a Star Wars game? Like, why is this not a Star Wars game? I would love to, just walk around, see a land speeder, take it, get chased by the cops in Star Wars and just flee and have my own land speeder. Like, I think that would be so cool. So of just doing that with a Star Wars game is what would be a dream come true, and have the full customization and everything, which they don't have in the Lego Star Wars game. I think that's dumb that you can't customize your own character. And that game was delayed for 3 years. Anyone listening knows how passionate I was about that, because I remember in 2019 they announced it was supposed to come out, and it was announced years before, but it was supposed to come out in 2020, and they were like, no, because of COVID. Completely understandable. But then they kept delaying it, and I was like, where's the game? Stop announcing stuff, just wait until it's ready. But so I'm so excited for this open world Star Wars game. It's going to be great. Ted, thoughts?
First, the creative director came out and said, hey, just so we're clear, it's not a release in 2023. I just meant that we have a lot working this year, so 2024, maybe early 2025, something like that is probably more realistic. As far as everything you guys have mentioned already, I'm down, especially the rumors that it's a lot like No Man's Sky, which I've played No Man's Sky. I like No Man's Sky. If you were to give me a Star Wars version of No Man's Sky, I would be thrilled, and it would be amazing. Something very detailed. Colin used the word immersive. I'm down with that. Just make it easier to find and play with your friends or pals online. That's all I ask for. I think just like some other franchises that have had video game releases this year, like Ghostbusters is a big one. You finally got a game where you're sort of doing missions as a team with your online friends. Something like that for Star Wars. Yes, make it immersive, make it an open world, travel through galaxies, visit planets, but missions or campaigns where you can go along with friends or online buddies. I think that would be key. You want to go through an experience, but the things like Force Unleashed, as great as those games were, you were doing it all by yourself. And so doing all that, but doing those things with online friends, that would be just even better. Just across the board would be incredible. So I feel like we've got a lot of great single player games. The thing that we need to tap into is more co-op kind of missions and experiences, but not like Battlefront, like those type of things, but more along the lines of going down a story or going through an experience would be incredible.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ted.
Agreed.
I'm not the biggest gamer, but I know we have all these next gen consoles now that I don't think that these studios have made comparable games to actually utilize all the horsepower those consoles can give us yet. So I think we're there already. I mean, we should be getting these Star Wars games that do include very immersive worlds, galaxies, multiplayer. Multiplayer is big for me. That's the only reason I play, is to play along with my friends. And I think that's the real draw for someone like me. And hopefully they listen to us and go that route.
Yeah, I think playing Ewok Hunt with like a big squad was probably my favorite thing to do, and I still do it every once in a while. I always play an Xbox, but now I have a PlayStation 5, and my other friends have a PlayStation 5. So I just saw Mike's face. So Mike,
we should play together sometime.
Yes. Because of just that type of immersiveness. It's great to play by yourself, but when you're playing with friends and you're going on this adventure, that's what these Star Wars movies are about, is bringing this random group together and having them go on an adventure. And if you can do that with people that you know and your friends and everything, that makes the whole experience so much better. Like, I mean, and it's not just the games. It's, for example, Star Wars Celebration, going there with friends, experiencing stuff for the first time, having family come with you and to the movies and everything. It's all about bringing people together. So if they do that with this game, and you're at the cantina and you all meet up and you're like, all right, how about we go to Tatooine? And you go to Tatooine and you're out on the road, and then you're like, oh, well, how about we be bounty hunters? That's the type of game that we want, to where we can play with our friends or family. That's the dream for a Star Wars game for me.
Some wishful thinking. I really like sandbox type games. Those are games like 7 Days to Die is probably one of the early ones, where you can sort of, live off the land, kind of build. It's more like an RPG in some cases. Customize everything. You're building your vehicles. I say from scratch, but you have components you need to find and all that. You build your shelters and things like that from things that you find from currency that you trade for goods and stuff like that. Like, there's so many things that you can potentially put into a video game that's built within the realm, the universe of Star Wars, and have so many key details like that. The possibilities are endless, and I hope we don't go down this rabbit hole where we just start like dreaming all of these things that we want for this game to have, and then it turned out being something completely different. Because, like you mentioned, these are leaks, these are rumors. Nothing is for certain, but just the rumors that it's a lot like No Man's Sky, and that game can be a huge ordeal, or there's a massive learning curve with learning the currencies and the exchanges and the components for certain things. But Star Wars already has a lot of that put into place, and the fans are fully aware of it. So you can make it as detailed as possible, and I think fans would love a game like that. It's something we've not really seen before. Usually you can change out things for in vehicles or weapons, but you can't really put together or customize an entire vehicle in any of the Star Wars games. So if they go down that route, if they make it that detailed, I think a lot of Star Wars fans would enjoy something like that. Learning the intricacies of certain vehicles or weapons, or putting together a lightsaber, but you have to find all the pieces and you have to forge it and all that kind of thing. I mean, there's so many things you can possibly put into a game like that. Other games have similar mechanisms to it. So all I'm saying is ton of ways this can go. I feel like with the technology, it can all be a potential for it, which would be great. Just exciting, and hopefully we get the majority of our wish list, and it's not just completely something different than we've been expecting.
I agree. The studio that's making the Star Wars game is actually going to have their other open world game come out, which is the new Avatar game, and that will be like our first glimpse of what the open world Star Wars game could be potentially, because that's just one planet, right? But there's a lot on that planet to do. In the Star Wars universe, there's multiple planets. It's a giant universe. So they are going to have to expand on that. And most likely, we'll probably see some type of glimpse at Star Wars Celebration in London. I would be surprised if we didn't, like, of just some type of, some type of announcement, some type of detail about the game, like a clip maybe of them working on it. I could definitely see them doing that. But that game is definitely high on my list. And then there's the game Eclipse that, when that trailer dropped, everyone was like, oh, great. And they're like, actually, it's probably not coming out until 2027, 2028. And we're just like, then why did you drop the trailer? Because the trailer looks amazing. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this is during the era of the High Republic and everything. Wonderful. And then you have it's years down the road. And I'm just like, dang. So hopefully this game doesn't turn into a situation like that. I don't think it will, but here's hoping.
Here's hoping.
Yeah. You got Fallen Order coming out pretty soon. So
Survivor, I'm so pumped for that. We have the collector's edition, and then we have the deluxe edition coming in, and our other co-host Josh and I are planning on beating that in one day. We are staying up until midnight till it comes out, planning on beating it maybe in 15 17 hours. He's coming over and
taking time off from work.
We are trying to, we are going to try and race each other and see who can get done faster. And that will be on our Twitch too. But yeah, so I'm excited for that game. That game is going to be amazing, especially with all the new creatures and everything. We actually do have a breakdown of that trailer, including all the details and our hopes and dreams for that. But yeah. Games.
So yeah, in regards to expansion here, everything that we kind of hoped for when Disney bought Star Wars, it looks like we got a little bit of a leak about these two guys working on a new project. It's called Ghost Track 17. And Bespin Bulletin dropped a nice little article here that I'm going to read some of it to you here in regards to this potential new project. So Bespin Bulletin says, in the latest issue of Production Weekly, a project listed as Untitled Star Wars Project has appeared, and though the listing has appeared several times before, with the belief previously being it was a Star Wars movie project being developed by either Taika Waititi or Damon Lindelof, which we'll talk about later, it's now sporting a working title and has listed producers of the project. The Untitled Star Wars Project reportedly has the working title Ghost Track 17 and sports both Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau as producers of the project. Now, not everything in the Production Weekly article should be taken as accurate, as sometimes they share internet rumors in their listings, which this may be. Just a couple of days ago, Daniel RPK shared on his Patreon that a new series set in the Mandoverse from Filoni and Favreau is in development, and he used the same working title in the post. So typically, a ghost track refers to a song hidden on an album, meaning a song would have been left off of the record's track list and was left as a surprise for the listener. However, the inclusion or hidden or ghost tracks has rapidly declined since the rise of iTunes and streaming services. One of the most notable instances of ghost track, and perhaps the first instance of it, was with the iconic album Abbey Road by the Beatles. Abbey Road publicly sported 16 tracks, but there was a hidden 17th track. Her Majesty, I wonder if the working title of the Star Wars project, Ghost Track 17, is a direct reference to Her Majesty, Abbey Road, or the Beatles in general. So what do you guys think about this? Have you read anything else in regards to what this could possibly be? I know Rangers of the New Republic was something that was going to happen, and it seems like it's not going to happen anymore. Could it be related to that somehow? What do you guys think, Colin?
I I know that they're aiming to have this show happen during the same timeline as Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Skeleton Crew. And I think which something we've been talking about and a lot of people suspect is that they're leading to an Avengers type event where all these shows will cross over and they'll be fighting a big bad. A lot of people think it's Thrawn. I'm hoping it's Thrawn. If it ends up not being Thrawn, who do you think it will be? I'm just curious because I can't think of any major big bads right now. It might be because I'm tired, but who do you guys think would be like the main big bad? Like if they ended up doing an Avengers type event where they cross over all these shows.
I like Thrawn.
Yeah.
Only because based on what happened in Rebels, there's kind of a question mark at the end of that to what happened to him. And we know he's been teased already a few times in the last few years. Ghost Track 17 is interesting because I totally forgot what Ghost Track meant until you brought it up. Because I own CDs, and Green Day Dookie had one of the best Ghost Tracks ever. You just let it play for like 5 minutes, and then like a song would come on at the end. So 17 is interesting because that would mean that there's been 16 other of something else, and I wonder what the 16 is.
Mandalorian episodes.
That could be it. I think I've read that some fans think that this is a sequel to Rebels, that we might be getting sort of more Rebel characters.
Right.
The name of the ship is Ghost. Yeah.
There you go. So there might be something to that. I'm not really sure. Regardless, I've kind of been one of the fans that have been not giving Book of Boba Fett a hard time. A lot of fans came in with this negative attitude because it had Mandalorian, it had all these other characters that were brought in, and some fans thought, oh, they were brought in to kind of save it because it wasn't that good of a show on its own. And I say nay. I say the Book of Boba Fett was titled that way because it's more like a chapter of an entire book, the Book of Boba Fett. And so I think regardless, Filoni and Favreau are not just trying to give us individual standalone series, but what they're doing is actually giving us chapters that kind of interweave and kind of are interconnected at some points in time. And so we already know we're getting Ahsoka, Mando, Book of Boba Fett. This could be Rebels, kind of a sequel to Rebels in there somewhere, or maybe they'll give us what we all really want, a series or limited series of Luke Skywalker's adventures. We all want to see the Great One in his prime as much as possible while there's still a chance. And they have the technology to do it. If not, go get the Winter Soldier, Sebastian Stan, and he could be a stand-in for Luke Skywalker. Nobody's going to complain. Even Mark Hamill, he wouldn't do that either. So I like the idea that it's Rebels or that it's sort of a mashup of all the series in one. I like that idea as well. Thrawn's a great pick because he's formidable and everybody knows that. And I'll leave it at that. The only other thing I can think of is that they're sort of trying to make this build up to the Emperor returning little by little. We've seen like kind of hints along the way, and I think like in The Mandalorian, they've been trying to throw things in there subconsciously to correct the errors of Star Wars. They fixed the Sarlacc pit whole situation. They dropped midichlorians really early on. Somewhere in is it Kenobi? They dropped the word midichlorians again.
They said M count at some point. Yeah.
Yes, M count. There's your midichlorians reference. I think little by little they're trying to fix all the things that Star Wars fans have been griping about for the last few decades. So maybe they're trying to also fix this build up to the return of the Emperor by just kind of showing the little bits and pieces of how it's possible. Not make it all about him, but at least show that, hey, our sequel trilogy really did amount to something. And so that could be a possibility. You kind of have to put that, or you kind of have to put the remnants, the beginnings of the First Order in there somewhere. Like there has to be that connective tissue to the sequel trilogy, and it doesn't have to be the focus, not the focus at all, but you kind of have to show how this faction of the Empire grew to larger than what the Empire ever was eventually, and it just didn't happen with a snap of your fingers. So I kind of expect more of that to happen.
Okay. All right. Mike?
Yeah, I don't. When I heard Ghost Track immediately, obviously, I'm a big Rebels fan, so I was like, are we gonna get like a Hera show, or a Rebel sequel? But I feel like they're uploading, not uploading, but they're putting in all the stuff that was going to go in this now canceled animated Rebel sequel in the Ahsoka show. I feel like we're gonna get a lot of those elements. So I think at this point in time, right now, I think we might get like a replacement show for Rangers of the New Republic. I think that they're recalibrating, the incident that happened there, and they're like, all right, well, we lost our lead. We're not gonna do that show anymore. Let's see what we go from here, and we're gonna do what we have right now, and we'll recalibrate later. And I think this is gonna be the show where I don't know. I think, as you guys mentioned, we have Ahsoka, we got the Book of Boba Fett show, the Mando show, and I mean, I could totally see us going maybe something that's introduced into and what's the other one? Skeleton Crew. That one's gonna be fun, I think.
Yeah.
But I think that we might get something with Hera in it. I don't know. I think I would love to see like a Hera-led show. Like if you go back to the game Squadrons, Star Wars Squadrons, I absolutely loved their story there and what they were doing with the cruisers, and they were like an instrumental part of the Battle of Jakku. I would love something that would, and I know at this point in time we are post Battle of Jakku, but I would love if they had some type of other big battle. And I guess I don't know. I just see Hera at the front of it. So for me personally, I would love a Hera show. Like all these people are getting one. Ahsoka's getting one. Give Hera her show. So I would be so down for that.
I would like that too, and especially with rumors that Mary Elizabeth Winstead has been cast as Hera in Ahsoka. I think she's a pretty good actress. I think she could hold a show on her own. I mean, the Adventures of Hera, that'd be really cool to see what she did after the events of Rebels. And I totally agree with you, Mike. And you said that Ahsoka is kind of going to be kind of like the spiritual successor to the end of Rebels, and taking it into live action. That's something that I wanted from the beginning, and looks like we're going to get it hopefully. But yeah, I'm super excited to hear something like this, and it makes my mind really wander as to why they named it Ghost Track 17. I know we're all kind of thinking about it right now, but for something to be kind of like a secret, to be hidden, it's like, I mean, what could it be? Is it something that takes place during the timeline that we're all familiar with, kind of off to the side? I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen any other articles or anything that kind of maybe pinpoint or give a good kind of theory on it. But yeah, I'm excited. It's Favreau, Filoni. It's Favreau who has the sensibilities of the original trilogy and fell in love with that, and Filoni who was mentored by George Lucas, as we all know, and has, I think, an understanding of the prequels more so than anyone else on the planet, and him continuing on that legacy with the Clone Wars and Rebels, and we have Bad Batch now, and yeah, I'm truly excited for it.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, these, I mean, for Ghost Track 17, it's funny the names that the creators give these projects. I mean, think back to Last Jedi and Rian Johnson's Space Bear. And people are, well, Space Bear, like, are we going to see bears in space? It's just always funny, the controversy, or just people talking like, is this that official name? It's like, no, these are just code names. And as Star Wars fans, we just like to speculate and see what we could pick up. So I always find these conversations enlightening.
My biggest thing, they have all these shows coming out. They have all these storylines. As long as they answer if Max Rebo is somewhere out there, as long as they answer that, I'm fine. Because I got so many messages in at the end of the season of Book of Boba Fett about, I think I saw Blue on there. I think he was in the explosion. I'm like, no, he is out there. He did not make it to the gig that day. He's in hiding because he thinks that explosion was pointed towards him. He's out there. Oh, yeah.
I would like to see more of the Rebo species and maybe concentrate maybe on his family or on his son or maybe
This is an argument that I have all the time, David. You have no idea.
I mean, we all saw the puppet at Celebration, so it's
yes,
they still have it there. I don't know if it's a workable like walking like type of like costume puppet type thing, but
so I've got friends at work. There's Jeff, Carlos, and Dylan, and they always give me crap for this. But the original design for Max Rebo had the 2 legs, right? Like it was just like the normal 2 legs. But George Lucas was like, "Hey, that's way too complicated. Why don't we change it to this?" And that was a lot more simpler. But they are so keen on Max Rebo only has 2 limbs, and they only say that to bother me to a point where we had like a 30-minute conversation the other day just about that. And we actually have not seen live action Max Rebo walk around on his 2 legs and where he has 2 arms. So I think the argument that I would love, I mean, the actual debut that I want to see is Max Rebo have all of his limbs, just walk around, just in the scene in the background, so I can stop getting messages, because people message me about that all the time, and I'm just like, just wait, man, just wait. So
this could be the year. This could be the year.
The year of Max Rebo and Star Wars at the same time. Boom. There you go. There would be cameo and Skeleton Crew, cameo and Mando.
The Max Rebo verse. I love it.
Yes. That's the dream right there. But yeah.
Can we just also agree that like no matter what it is, we have like just full trust in Filoni and Favreau, and no matter whatever they decide to do with this other series?
Yeah, I think we do. I think that's what kind of everyone's kind of like, okay, Kathleen Kennedy's contract is coming up again, and maybe they're gonna kind of put Filoni in that position. But I mean, I keep on pointing to this, what the WB did, Warner Brothers did with James Gunn and Peter Safran. You have a creative head and you have an executive at the top. And I think for Filoni, I think it would be way too much of a burden for him to be an executive. I think to be in charge of creative, I think that's what his wheelhouse really is. And of course, you have Favreau right there. I think Favreau probably could have the chops to be an executive, but the question is that something that Favreau wants to do? And of course, in turn, he could still supply creativity to Star Wars, because you look at The Mandalorian. I mean, he kind of single-handedly brought Star Wars back into the whole pop culture zeitgeist like it hadn't been since the release of The Force Awakens and the release of The Phantom Menace. So I'm hoping that they could kind of structure something like that. And I think Filoni has been thinking about all this stuff for so many years. He did an interview recently where he talked about how he thought about a particular scene for Ahsoka 5 years prior to being on a live action set and actually shooting that scene with Rosario Dawson. And he said he just couldn't believe where he was sitting and what he just saw on camera. So I think the Ahsoka show for me, I think I'm more hyped about that than I am about The Mandalorian season 3, which we're going to get here pretty soon. So yeah, I think that those guys should be at the top. I think they should be greenlighting projects from other creators that show up and give them pitches. I know we've talked about the whole Zack Snyder Rebel Moon thing. I know it's Zack Snyder. I know he doesn't have as many fans as I think we would all like, but I mean, he was turned down by Lucasfilm and he went to Netflix and took his project there. And it's going to be interesting to see how that project turns out. And that's going to come out this year. And I think since it's on Netflix, it's going to be a whole lot more adult and everything, but I would like more creators to show up. And I've said this, I probably sound like a broken record now, but that's what I think Star Wars needs. But the next story I think we want to talk about here is the fact that what we reported on, I think it feels like months ago, that Damon Lindelof is going to work on a project. It's going to be a film, which is a speculation. It looks like it's going to be the next film that we get in 2025. And there was a report from, I believe, that Jeff Snyder made on another podcast, who I believe his handle is the In Snyder, because he's been in the industry for a while. He gets inside tips, and he's pretty reputable. And he indicated that this film, I think, has already gotten underway to start shooting, and it's further along than just pre-production. It's pretty much in production now. And apparently, the new tidbit that he gave us was the lead of this new film is going to. The first report was it was going to be a. I don't know. Can you help me, Colin? What was the first report on Damon Lindelof's film? I believe it was.
It was supposed to be a male lead, and now it is a female-led film.
Yes. So that's the newest report, that it's a female-led film, but not only that, it's going to be a person of color. So it's going to kind of be like recasting in the sequels in a way. And we also know that there's going to be sequel trilogy tie-ins. And of course, we reported on Daisy Ridley showing up to Lucasfilm, taking some pictures and assuring us that this had nothing to do with Star Wars. She was just there for a visit, which I don't really buy that. I mean, you travel all the way from her home in the UK all the way to California just for a visit with friends. I don't know.
Star Wars actors lie all the time. Like, think about Ewan lying all those years of being like, oh, I'm not coming back as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but at the same time now it looks like I'm knocking on their door. And then all of a sudden, back in 2019, he walks up on stage and everyone freaks out, even though in my heart I knew he would always come back. But it was still awesome to see him, be like, I'm playing him again. And we were like, yeah. So I honestly could see Daisy Ridley coming back. I don't know about John Boyega.
Well, John Boyega just came out again and saying, no, I think I'm done with Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I think if they roll around with a decent sized check, I don't think he's done. Because I think there are a certain amount of fans, and I've talked about this in the past, when I went to Star Wars Celebration and I met up with a group of fans for another podcast, actually, they were telling me that they were super hyped up because they were finally going to get a Black Jedi. And that was the whole thing. That was a huge kind of draw to have the first kind of leading role Black Jedi. And we all know how the sequel trilogy went down. Then we find out that, yes, he was Force sensitive at the end of The Rise of Skywalker. And it's kind of like we didn't get the full kind of payoff of Finn as a character, as being a Jedi Master, a Stormtrooper turned Jedi. We've never really gotten that before. And I think a lot of fans thought that he was kind of put on the back burner. And I think Poe and Rey came more into the forefront in that trilogy. And John Boyega's got chops too. And I wish he didn't feel that way. I wish he wasn't saying that in interviews. But yeah, he's said it several times that I don't want to be Disney Plus, and I think I'm done with Star Wars. But I think if Daisy Ridley comes back, maybe in this next film with Damon Lindelof, I think that could maybe set up a pathway to John Boyega and possibly Poe coming back, Oscar Isaac. And to me, Oscar Isaac wouldn't have to do much. I mean, he would just have to sit in a cockpit somewhere on some blue screen stage. I mean, he's a pilot. I mean, if you're going to concentrate on new stars, and the more and more I talk about this, the more and more I feel like this is going to be episode 10. And that's something that no one's talking about.
Yeah.
But do you guys think that there is a stigma on the episode numbers now after the sequel trilogy and everything that went down? Or do you think they're going to be like, surprise, yeah, it is episode 10 at some point? What do you think, Colin?
I'm still bummed that we didn't get Colin Trevorrow's script for Duel of Fates. I'm really sorry about that, because that was a beautiful script, and that had so much of Finn in it as well. And that, I think that really fulfilled the whole thing of him of being a stormtrooper turned into a Jedi. I don't think there was that much about him being a Jedi in that, but I also don't like the fact that in the Lego Star Wars specials that we've gotten in the past couple of years have more of that story arc of him becoming a Jedi than what we got in the actual live action trilogy. So that was kind of disappointing to me. I still love those, especially because Max Rebo shows up. I'm just kidding. But I just really want that destiny fulfilled for Finn, because he was such a great character. And I just felt like he was kind of robbed of that story. And I'm not sure if you guys have read the script for Rise of Skywalker, and which I think that's something we should definitely do on the podcast, where we actually do like a script read of it. I mean, not Rise of Skywalker, for Duel of Fates, because that script is so detailed and it's phenomenal. And I really, really wish that we got it. But in terms of episode 10, I'm optimistic. I know a lot of people were thinking that Rogue Squadron, the movie that Patty Jenkins was working on, was also going to be, like episode 10, and that's fine. But I want them to go in with the idea that if we're dealing with main characters, that you got to stick with the script. That's probably my biggest thing. And we actually just had a debate on Patreon about The Last Jedi, because my biggest thing was the way that they treated Luke Skywalker. But I want them to, if they end up doing it episode 10, I want them to maybe stay away from like the Emperor and all that stuff, but at the same time kind of maybe have some of the unanswered questions, because you have to remember, in Exegol, after they left on Rise of Skywalker, all of those Star Destroyers were just sitting in orbit, and all they have to do is build a different satellite for those ships to take off. So they need to answer that for sure, because that was a big unanswered question. And then they made a plot hole when they made that comic where Vader went to Exegol. But Mike, help me out, because I think you covered this, of where Vader goes to Exegol. It was between Empire Strikes Back, right? He is with Sabe.
I think it was after Empire and between Return of the Jedi, if I remember.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and he, which I've mentioned this a lot, but it's just so funny to me because it's a big plot hole now. Is that he goes to the planet, he sees all the Emperor's clones, he sees all of the Star Destroyers, and then the Emperor doesn't wipe his mind or anything, which I don't know how they would do that, but Vader knows this. So I just don't understand why Anakin, as a ghost, didn't explain that to Luke or anything like that.
You know what? I think it was covered a bit. I don't want to spoil, but I think it was covered a bit, what you're saying, in the book Shadow of the Sith.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So read Shadow of the Sith. I'm just going to say that for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Because if they answer that, then I'll be happy, because that was a big plot hole for me, because I was like, all those, like, he knew, like he knew all that. But awesome. So cool. I'm definitely going to have to check out the book. But I want them to have a story where it's going to maybe where they pull in stuff from Legends, because there's a lot of untapped stuff from Legends, and there's a lot of stuff in the unknown regions that they could definitely do. I think that there's so much potential, and again, Star Wars is a big universe. There's so many species, so many different characters that we don't even know about, and maybe some familiar ones that they could definitely bring back, that have this untapped potential of storytelling. And I think that there's no limit of what they can do, and I'm very interested to see on how they do it. But being episode 10, I don't know if they should just slap the title of that on there, unless it's going to be, because the whole point of episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 was the Skywalker saga. So if you're adding episode 10 to it, you're kind of continuing the Skywalker saga, in my opinion. Which
so if you think about it, if it's not episode 10, you're not going to get the classic yellow Star Wars. You're not going to get the crawl. None of that's going to happen.
Yeah, but do you guys want them to continue the Skywalker saga? Because
they don't have to. Well, Rey Skywalker, and she might come back.
I know. I know. Ted, Mike, how do you guys feel about that?
I'll let Mike go first.
All right. So I think that big mistake in not including the title crawl in Rogue One. I think it's a big mistake. I think that the comics and the video games, they show the crawl, and it's like you could have just started out. I mean, I actually love the way Solo starts off. It's very dramatic. They did it very differently, a little bit closer to like a crawl, but very differently. But it still impacted you when Han was just flying with his speeder, and then the logo comes straight at you with the solo title or logo, and I thought that was great. But for episode 10, I feel like there's like this. I think there is a stigma right now, and I feel like what we have to do is take the J.J. Abrams approach at what he did with Force Awakens, because they were so sure that everyone hated the prequel trilogy, and they made sure to like make no references, and when they were making Force Awakens, they kept saying like, this is all practical effects, real. It's not CGI. Like they were just doing this front to get the old Star Wars fans back, and which they thought was the majority. But then look at what happened after Force Awakens came out. Everyone was like, "Wait, I want the prequels. Why isn't there like prequel representation?" And then the prequel, the clamor for the prequels and the love just started being shown and shown. And I thought it was pretty surreal seeing that happen on social media, because I started my Instagram page 10 years ago this year, and I remember every time I would post about the prequels, people would complain or nitpick, and it was just insane. I couldn't even post a picture of Hayden's Anakin Skywalker without getting complaints. Or I remember I posted a pod race scene, and people were complaining that how does this exist in the same world as like Return of the Jedi or A New Hope? And I'm like, what? Like I feel like every time we go to Star Wars, the world just expands. So it was pretty hilarious that there was complaints like that. So maybe we'll see something like that, and I'm pretty sure it'll happen. I think something like that will happen with the sequel trilogy, but I think some time and some distance will do us good. But I actually think if they went away from the numbers, because I feel like Star Wars has to adapt to the newer audiences, and I feel like, I mean, look at the Marvel films. No one's saying they're being like, oh, what number is this in the chronological order? No one's like, you don't. I mean, I think that Marvel Studios trusts their fans enough, and I feel like Star Wars has to start trusting their audience a bit more. And if people wanted to go look up and see when this movie takes place, it could certainly do so. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we should get away from the numerals and just leave it as a Skywalker saga thing, or people are just gonna get confused. But I definitely think that I would love that. Yeah, the story takes place post Rise of Skywalker. Get a new cast. I would love to see if Rey came back for like a small part or something. Little slowly but surely get them in there. And also, look, Daisy Ridley, she's great friends with John Boyega. I'm sure if a couple sit downs with coffee or tea, I'm sure she'll be able to lure him back into the universe. And same with Oscar Isaac is always just so flippant. He's just like, nah. And then one day he's like, yeah, I'll do it if I need another house or something. So I feel like he'll come back as well. And I mean, he was pretty enthusiastic about his Moon Knight character for Marvel, and he's on Disney Plus. He was also one of those people like, hey, you're not gonna Disney Plus me. Well, they did, and I'm pretty sure he would come back for something Star Wars. Just like I said, give it some time. But I don't know where I would like them to take that direction. I don't know if I want the story to take place like maybe 5 years after Rise of Skywalker, 10 years, 20 years. Like it's just open road right now. And I really hope, as Colin, you were saying, like, hope they get away from like the Emperor and all that stuff. Actually, even though there's questions to be answered, I'm just like, just start a whole new book, start fresh, clean material. Let's give it a second go, and we could do it could be its own trilogy or its own saga, do something else, do another storyline, So I'm optimistic, but I really hope that they just, the book is closed on Skywalker saga, leave Palpatine, everything there, just start fresh.
Please.
I agree.
Do not do any more. As much as I love Daisy Ridley as an actress, and I love Oscar Isaac as an actor, I don't think there's anything left to tell us about this universe at the end of episode 9. I don't want some other new faction that we did not foresee taking over the galaxy and them having to fight them off again. There's so much lore. There's so many stories. I'm begging somebody to do something in the Old Republic. Like, for the love of God, please. I know acolytes around the High Republic, but please, for the love of God, The Old Republic is like sitting right there. Like we've played those games 5-6
It's a
times
slam dunk,
over.
right, Ted? It's a slam
That's what I'm
dunk.
saying. KOTOR, we played those games, the first two, like 5 or 6 times over, just to see like the different variations of how your story ended. And so there's so much there for you to take on. And I backtrack a little bit. Damon Lindelof, he did the Watchmen series for HBO, and I kid you not, it was an absolute masterpiece. There's probably some
Yes.
people that were maybe triggered or offended by it for whatever reason, but it was an absolute masterpiece. One of the best, I would say, top 2 or top 3 comic book shows ever, and that's not going to change. So anything he wants to do, I'm all in. I'm sold. Give it to me. He's a fantastic writer, and so I'm excited that he's doing anything Star Wars related. But please, I feel like we're done with the sequel trilogies. We're done with this timeline. Uh, there's just, you have to let it go. Like, you don't need to try and fix anything. If you feel like you've wronged the Star Wars fans because of how it ended or how unprepared you were for the sequel trilogy, like, we're fine. We're good with it. Let's go back now and let's figure something else out. The stigma with the episode numerals and all that, I think if you start something in a different timeline, like let's do an Old Republic kind of saga, you can start over and you can start with 1 or you can start with 4, and then that would really get people talking. Ooh, an Old Republic saga, and they started with 4? Are you kidding me? Would it sound too repetitive? Sure, but ultimately I think it would be more intriguing than anything else, and you would give us something to talk about, which hasn't been done since the original film back in the 70s. So seriously, like, just let it go. Let's go to the Old Republic, and you can pick a number of characters from there. Like, we don't have to go with the main one in the game. You can start with a different one, and we would be totally down for that. I didn't get into the MMO as much, mostly because I didn't have a PC that would handle it. So that if you do anything in that timeline, the Old Republic timeline with the MMO, I wouldn't be able to follow as well. But I'm still down for like everything they built up for the MMO and getting back to some like really formidable villains. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of like Sith, and not like Palpatine Sith, like the OG badass Sith. So there's just so much you can do with it, and I would love for us to just get away from the Skywalker saga. If it's not related to Luke, that is, because I mentioned earlier, I would love just a Luke Prime series, and then go do something in the Old Republic.
Yeah. Every time that they came out with the Old Republic, the Old Republic cinematics, I would always freak out because I remember the one where they crashed into the temple and then the door opens and then he's like, "And we have returned," and then you just hear like the classic battle of heroes and you're just like, "Oh my gosh," and then they're all charging at each other. Why was that not a movie? Like, everyone would be freaking out in the theater. That to me would have been something in the lines of an Avengers Endgame type moment where people would be like jumping out of their seats because of having what we had in the Phantom Menace with Obi-Wan, Darth Maul, and Qui-Gon fighting Anakin and Obi-Wan and Mustafar, but just multiple fights at the same time. People would be freaking out. So hopefully we get something like that in Acolyte. Probably not because of it's the High Republic era, but in the Old Republic era, where there's a lot of Sith just around, that would be insane to me. That would be incredible, and I think that's what a lot of people want. So I'm all for it, hands down. That would be amazing. Seeing Darth Bane and the fall of the Sith and him come up, like him create where he creates the rule of 2. Do it. Just do it. It'd be awesome.
Palpatine. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said, Ted. There are a huge throng of fans for the sequel trilogy, though, and I think it would be a huge disappointment if they kind of let those characters be. And of course, you have the youth of those actors too. They're still young. They're still relatively the same age. They not as far a gap as was between the original trilogy and sequel trilogy. And I always point to the fact that you have those actors out there that are still young enough, that can still act. I think it kind of leads back to me watching the Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill performance in The Last Jedi. That dude acted his butt off. I thought his acting performance was great. I didn't like what they did with the character, but I mean, his acting was so good. I was just kind of shocked in the theater watching that and thinking, like, why hadn't he had any more roles and more live action roles? But yeah, I'm just looking forward to the future. There are, as we do know, there are a lot of leaks out there and a lot of people that aren't trustworthy, but there are sources that are trustworthy. And I think from a very, very trustworthy source, I learned a couple things early this morning. I think the direction that we're going with Star Wars in general is a unique direction. And I think Filoni is going to be overseeing some particular kind of story points in some upcoming series. And I think once the purchase happened of Disney via Lucasfilm, when they took over, I think all the fans immediately thought of, oh, it's going to be something like super original and they're going to put thought into it. But they fast track the sequels, the sequel trilogy, and I think that they kind of realized that kind of Monday morning quarterback style that probably wasn't the best way to go. But of course, they had to see a return on their investment. But now, after all this time, you have someone that we keep on mentioning on the podcast here, Filoni, with being entrenched in Star Wars being his job, being the Padawan of George Lucas. I think that he has a lot of stories and a lot of stuff that he wanted to do before he was kind of up there to where he is now. And I think that we are going to have a lot to look forward to with this kind of connected story. Where we're going to get this huge event on Disney Plus or in the theaters connecting Skeleton Crew, Mando, Ahsoka, and whatever series they drop. I think the future is going to be what we were kind of, a lot of the hardcore fans were kind of expecting at the beginning. And to go back to what Mike was saying earlier about 10 years ago, he started his Instagram page. Well, yeah, 10 years ago, maybe those fans that didn't like the prequels kind of aged out of Instagram, or just went away, or maybe even like passed away. I don't know. But yeah, the resurgence of the prequel love was something, well, it was a sight to behold. Just looking at this past celebration.
Yeah.
I mean, it was huge. I mean, with the 20th anniversary of Attack of the Clones, I mean, at the time, all the years before that, Attack of the Clones was lauded as one of the worst things that Star Wars has ever done. But
Nice.
but yeah, I mean, I didn't have any problem with it when I saw it in the theater watching Yoda fight with the saber for the first time. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying, Mike. It's just a significant reversal of opinion. But I mean, it could be just those fans just aged out, really. You know,
I hope so. But I mean, take it back to 2019's Chicago celebration, and Ahmed Best walks out for the first time in front of fans' eyes in so many years. I remember getting emotional, and I was towards the front of the stage, yelling my voice out, and even he got emotional. He was just like, oh, like he was just so compelled, and it was just what a moment. What I always think back to that moment, and I'm like, and you know, all the stuff that he said and the way he was treated by fans and critics, it was just insane. It was insane to be in that room and right there seeing him come back out and seeing the public opinion of the prequels just sway in the direction of everyone cheering for him and stuff. So it was awesome. And same thing happened to Kelly Marie Tran when she came up on stage, thunderous applause. So it's just like, yeah, like, you know, oh man. So like I said, one day hopefully we'll get there with the sequels where we could just be, not, you don't have to love them, but just be content that, well, you know what, they exist. I don't really care for them, but they're there.
Yeah, I mean, I I mean, because of there will definitely be those handful of people that are out there. Because I remember when the first episodes came out of Kenobi and everything was happening with Moses and Graham, and I was so upset. I was like, guys, come on, come on, like we're on the same team. We're fans of something, and it really upsets me when things happen like that. And it's crazy to think about how much, how many crazy things have happened since then, because you're right, with Ahmed Best and Jake Lloyd and like all those actors, they were hated for some reason. Like they were just doing their jobs. And now you go all the way to now, and especially with Hayden, people gave Hayden so much crap. But now he is one of the most beloved characters and actors of Star Wars of all time. Like, I can't describe how much I was tearing up on the couch at 3 a.m. in the morning when I saw Hayden come back as Anakin and Kenobi, where like him and Obi-Wan were fighting in the temple. And I know, like, oh, he kind of looks old and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't care. That's Anakin Skywalker. I feel like a kid again. Thank you. And it's so cool to see these actors have, kind of, how they've held on. Because, some people in these situations definitely walk away, and they're just like, oh yeah, like, they like hated me, I'm done with it. But then you have Ahmed Best, who went through so much as an actor, because of his role as Jar Jar. And the fact that he is still a fan himself, and he has come back to Star Wars. He had that game show. I can't think the name of it. I remember watching it all the way through during the pandemic, but he had that game show, and he came back and he played his own character and everything, and he still loves Star Wars after all he went through. So it really shows you, like, how much the actors themselves love Star Wars as well, and how much growth fans can have. So I'm with Mike. I hope in the future that for the sequels, people go back, and it's not like, oh yeah, like they're terrible. It's like, hey, it's there. It's there. I don't love them, but I don't hate them. And I don't hate the people that are portraying the characters, because at the end of the day, it's Star Wars. All of it is Star Wars. And that's what we love. That's why we watch it, because it is Star Wars. So at the end of the day, we're on the same team. We might not all agree, with our own opinions and everything like that. But at the end of the day, we're on the same team, and we all love Star Wars.
When I mentioned earlier that Filoni and Favreau are going to go back and right all the wrongs, or like fix all the criticisms that Star Wars ever had before, you better believe that also includes Jar Jar Binks. One day, I'm going to make this bold claim right now, we will get Jar Jar in one of these series, one of these episodes, a reference of some kind, and it won't be to any criticisms or any sort of complaints by the fans. We will actually just all rejoice, because it will be done in such a way that it celebrates that character, and I, for one, am all here for it. I never understood the criticisms of Jar Jar. I would never go and bash or like complain about an actor to their faces or online on social media. I think that's ridiculous. I do not like the sequel trilogies because they are not cohesive, and that's not directed at one person. It's more so directed at the plan that was not there. And I think that's a fair assessment of just how the sequel trilogies happened. Or yeah, forget what my last point was. Episode 2, yes, Yoda fighting with a lightsaber was incredible. Everybody in my theater, the opening night, was screaming at the top of their lungs. Just their minds are being blown while it was happening. It was a sight to behold, and it was absolutely incredible. So yeah, the prequel trilogies absolutely hold up. That is a cohesive trilogy because it was an entire plan that was well thought out, and it's even more appreciated nowadays because you can go back and see all the intricacies of Palpatine's plan unfolding. I mean, really, really dive into it and just see all the chess pieces he was moving from Episode 1 to episode 3, and it's a beautiful sight to behold. It's just incredible.
Yeah, and that's honestly the same thing with the Clone Wars, which I know Mike will probably be able to relate a lot on my end about this is getting done with school on Friday and just getting ready to watch the Clone Wars, or waking up on Saturday morning and just getting ready for the next episode. That was like the best feeling in the world. And when they brought Clone Wars back, season 7, I was over the moon. I was so pumped. I remember like crying, like of just seeing all these beloved characters come back, Rex, everything. I was over the moon. And then that's how I felt with Bad Batch, because it was that vibe of the Clone Wars again, and a continuation of some of these characters that started all the way back in 2008. Which the movie did not get the best reviews. And that's the same thing with Ahsoka. When she appeared, people were like, oh, who's this character? And now she is one of the most beloved characters of all time. She has her own live action show coming out this year. No one would have ever thought that all the way, back in 2008. So it's crazy how much Star Wars can grow and how much fans can grow as these movies go along. Because I'm telling you, every single time I hear the theme, I see a character that I love, I turn into a kid again. I feel like a kid. And that's what, I think a lot of people like about Star Wars, especially as an adult growing up, because you want to have that feeling and fall back into the way that you felt as a kid. And that's what Star Wars keeps doing, is it keeps bringing your younger self like back into light. And that's just an incredible feeling. So I think we will definitely get that going forward, especially with this year, with all the projects coming out. I mean, I can't tell you how amazing it was to see Mando and a Naboo starfighter go through Beggar's Canyon, and you hear him say wizard, and you're just like, what is happening right now? So it's so cool to have those callbacks, and at the same time, it's something new, but it's something original, and it goes back to of what we love and enjoy so much. So I'm very excited to see the rest of this year, because again, year of Star Wars, so much to happen, so much to see, so much to do, so much to play. So it's gonna be fantastic. Chef's kiss.
Real quick, not entirely off topic because we're talking about episode 2 here. I had a great interview with Daniel Logan like 3 weeks ago, and he told this funny story that I'm going to repeat. He was in the screening for episode 2, the worldwide screening, and only a few people, of like a handful of people, knew about the scene where young Boba is holding the helmet of Jango. That was actually filmed like kind of at a weird time, and it was just George and the cameraman and Daniel and like maybe one or two other folks. So not too many people knew about kind of that really, really heartfelt moment of him holding his helmet, his dad's helmet. He's in the screening and it's dead silent because it's a very tender moment where he picks up the helmet. And it was, to a young Daniel, it was sort of a kind of a moment where he thought in the movie he would kind of take up the mantle of his father. And Daniel was very hopeful that he would actually be the actual person to take up the mantle and continue on in the Star Wars universe. And so in that moment, during that scene, he's actually cheering. He like screamed like, yeah, because he kind of felt like it was this big moment where he's like, yeah, he's going to be a badass like his dad. Meanwhile, everybody else is all cheering up because this poor little boy is holding his father's helmet. His head may or may not still be in there. So just hilarious moment where Daniel talked about that just screaming and cheering. Meanwhile, everybody else is in a really somber sort of mood at that point in time. I've taken way too long to edit this interview. It'll probably be out sometime this week, so I'll hit you guys up to check it out. But had a great conversation with him. Fantastic guy, and yeah. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that too. Was the head still in the helmet, or did it fly out? I just guessed it flew out, and he just had the helmet.
I think
a lot of people are like,
yeah,
I think the head is in there, and I'm like, dude,
no. I think the head did fly out.
Well, they show the shadow of the head when you pausing and all that. Yeah,
I don't think they actually show it. Like, I mean, because I remember being a kid of watching Revenge of the Sith, and I just don't know why, but I didn't notice till older that you actually see Count Dooku's like head
roll
there. Yeah, which I didn't know until until I was older. And I was like, oh wow, totally missed that. So but I love that the Attack of the Clone, I mean, and I think the Clone Wars definitely did a good job of doing what they're trying to do now with the sequels, of where they are trying to make the Mandalorian, Skeleton Crew, all those shows try and kind of excite and make the sequels make more sense, I guess. And that's what they did with the Clone Wars, where now you go and watch all the Clone Wars and then you watch Revenge of the Sith, try and not cry, because you see Kit Fisto and Plo Koon and all of these Jedi have these amazing stories, and then Order 66 happens, and it's just the saddest thing in the world. And if you haven't watched the 4-hour supercut, it's on Reddit. Of the links on Reddit, go and check it out. I watch it maybe every 5 months because I love it so much, because it ties in like the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars. And it's got and then it's got the Battle of Coruscant from the 2003 Clone Wars TV show as well, and it just ties in everything together. It's amazing. It's 4 hours though, but if you're fans of Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, then it should be a piece of cake. It should be fine, because all the extended editions are super, super long. But that's definitely something worth checking out.
There you
go. Yeah. Also, before we go, I just want to point out one thing that Ted kind of highlighted: the whole kind of not having a plan. I've seen a lot of arguments and comments online about how George Lucas never had a plan. Well, I mean, George Lucas kind of had more of an outline of kind of what he wanted to do, and I think there was other people around him, like Marcia Lucas's editor, and of course Irvin Kershner for The Empire Strikes Back, and the editor for that film as well, that made it what it was. So it was more like a team effort. But I mean, you think if you're a big corporation buying Star Wars, it'd be kind of callous not to have a plan going into a trilogy that you're about to produce from scratch. I mean, it was very fortuitous and lucky that Star Wars turned out the way it did, and I think a lot of people were responsible. George Lucas was the creator, of course. And he had predominantly most of the ideas of what to do, how he wanted to do the Used universe and to build on mythological archetypes and everything, and go off of kind of what Joseph Campbell talked about in his book. But I mean, you kind of have to, this day and age, I think you do need to go in to a big budget people's jobs, depending on franchise, that you have to go in with a plan, and I feel like Filoni is going into what he's doing with a finite, resolute plan that he's about to execute, and I'm super excited for what we're about to get when this thing all connects. And I think in the Bad Batch, when you do watch it, Ted, there's some connective tissue in there that I think you'll like. And
can't wait.
Yeah.
I'll also say, Disney already had the blueprint. Marvel was already past the midway point of their 10-year plan, right? Because Iron Man came out in 2008, and they probably bought Lucas, or they probably bought Star Wars a few years after that. I don't remember the exact year it was, but you had all that time to just be like, hey, look what they're doing. A full 10-year plan. They stuck to their guns no matter what happened with box office sales for any of those movies. And yet they couldn't just do that. You couldn't get 3 movies right while Marvel was doing 20. It just feels like you could have tried a little bit harder, put more effort into it. And we know Filoni has a plan, because I'm pretty sure Rosario Dawson was cast as Ahsoka before they even started filming for The Mandalorian. I swear I heard that. I swear I heard her say that. He already knew he was going to cast Rosario, or she already got the call before the first episode of Mandalorian ever aired. So he's absolutely thinking 4, 5, 6 steps down the line, and that's just to show you how much effort and work that he's putting into this sort of TV universe that he's been building.
And he just let the fans kind of think it was a fan casting instead of like he had it like all like locked down beforehand. Yeah.
I think they definitely helped. Like he probably heard it somewhere, but no, she actually was told like, "Hey, this will be you, but we have to kind of get through these first 2 seasons of Mando first." So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I saw her in interviews that she was totally interested in Star Wars, Star Trek, everything that science fiction. A lot like Zoe Saldana, they want to be in these franchises, and yeah, it's truly great when you have people that are into it, like Ewan McGregor and Dominic Pace being cast in Star Wars, and they're really into it. They want to do conventions, they want to sign, and it's incredible when that happens. So that's all I have. Colin, do you have anything else for this podcast?
No. Honestly, we covered a lot. There's so much to cover in the future. I just keep thinking every day on how busy March is going to be, because you've got Bad Batch, you got Mando, and you've got Jedi Survivor, and I can already see the gears turning in Mike's head, because he has a big like page on Instagram where he just where it's mainly about like facts and news and everything. And that's just going to be a busy month, Mike. That's going to be a busy month for you.
Big month. The Mando and Bad Batch and Fallen Order, the book, and then the game, and our Survivor. So I'm already tired. It's gonna be a big time. So, but I'm pumped.
Oh yeah. So I'm very optimistic about the future, and I'm glad that we have so many podcasters, so many different fan pages that are going to be able to cover it, because we have a giant community and we all love Star Wars. And I count my blessings every day that we have platforms like this to where we can, it's not just talking amongst friends, but it's talking amongst friends on a public platform where not everyone, has that, of where people can, listen and, kind of hear other people's thoughts and stuff. So I'm glad that we all have platforms like this to where, people can and be on the same level as us and enjoy something that's truly amazing. But yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, before we go, Ted, let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Everywhere on social media, Countdown City Geeks, or just Geeks is fine. You should be able to find us. We do 3 shows a week. The main one is just kind of like headlines and stuff. We also do a Ghostbusters one on Wednesdays, and then a wrestling one on Thursdays. So if you're into wrestling, you know where to find us. And like I mentioned earlier, I've been kind of procrastinating on this Daniel Logan interview, holidays and whatnot. So I promise it'll be out very soon. And last piece of information is I just found out Nicolas Cage is a Trekkie, not really a Star Wars fan, but he is a Trekkie. So there you go.
All right. Well,
I'm not gonna be able to top that. But first of all, I wanna thank you guys for having me on. We've been planning this for, it felt like years, but finally been able to sit down with you guys. So finally awesome to be on the Star Wars Stuff podcast, because I ran into Colin. Did I meet you, David, at Chicago Celebration?
Yes. I actually don't remember, but I
will
was
say
on your Instagram,
yes,
and you were inviting people, and I came on, and I think you're expecting Colin, and I came up.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. Oh, I did have you on a live. Oh, that is hilarious. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
We did actually see each other at Celebration 2019, and at first I didn't know it was you, but you walked up and you were like, "Yeah, I heard your voice and I heard you talking." I'm like, "Yeah, I knew it was Colin." And I was like, "Oh, nice." And then for some reason we just forgot to take a picture. So
I know I'm pretty upset about that, but I still have all the merch from the Star Wars Stuff podcast, so pretty cool. We didn't run into each other at Anaheim, which is very sad, but next year, wherever next year is, because I'm not going to London. Oh, and there's London too to add to the Star Wars counter this year, so it's a very stacked year. But I'm gonna be covering all of it on my Instagram, which is _Star Wars. I'm also on Twitter. I tweet random stuff just for fun. And then I'm starting back up on my YouTube channel. And I'm doing like a Bad Batch every week show. So we're just covering that. Had a lot of fun with it, and everyone seemed to like it. So it's like, well, we'll do more of them. And then my main podcast is I podcast with an Australian, funny enough, and that's at the Star Wars Exchange on YouTube. And yeah, pretty. We just did a 2022 rundown, and we're just like, man, what a year we had, but we're gonna have an even bigger year with 2023. So you can find me all there to cover all the exciting stuff that's coming out this year.
Yeah, you all are always welcome. We and Mike, we just found out that you just found out that I have a PS5, so we are definitely gonna have to hop on Twitch and play some Star Wars Battlefront 2 for sure. But yeah, exciting stuff.
Exciting.
Yeah, so you can also find us, Star Wars Stuff Podcasts, at Patreon, of course. Trying to bring it up here. And of course, we're on Instagram. Colin runs that at Star Wars Stuff Podcast. We're on Twitter at Stuff Pod. We're on TikTok. You can email us at Star Wars Stuff Podcast, whatever you want to talk to us about. Also, we're on Facebook. Of course, we're streaming there right now. And also go to Apple and Spotify. Give us 5 stars. We'd really appreciate that. And the comments too. And the comment section has been really great.
It's so funny. Because Dave and I were just talking about this yesterday. It does look like David's going on there and just making the comments about him. But people are like, yeah, David is great. He's fantastic. All the other guys are okay, but David's great. And it's just the funniest thing to me. But yeah.
Is it you, Ted? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, for Mike, Ted, Colin, my name is David, and may the Force be with you.
Always.